Ms. Swopes,
Yes. Okay. Mayor Miller,
here.
Mr. Robinson.
Yeah.
Mr. Elkins,
Here.
Mr. Lopez.
Here.
Ms. Parker is absent. Ms. Cordova.
Here.
Mr. Reckler,
Here.
Mr. Self,
Here.
and Mr. Merrick.
Okay, we have a quorum. I'd ask everybody to stand, and Councilman Robinson's going to lead us in invocation, and Councilman Self's going to lead us in the pledges.
Continue to let us strive as a community. Help our employees as they do their daily work and stay in the hands of our mayor and our city prosecutors so that you may do your work. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. The first item is public comment. The public has the opportunity to provide comment on subjects regarding city business during the public comment period. Speakers' comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the mayor and/or councilors request more information. The time limit is given in an effort to allow public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt yet efficient manner. All speakers must sign in at the beginning of the meeting. Topics are limited to 6 speakers per topic. I have 3 people on our list tonight. And Mr. Parton, I believe you're number 1 with, you want to speak about the zone change. Yeah. Please. And go ahead for the record, introduce yourself.
I'm Jerry Parker. And I live out by the area where it's been proposed on the change. What I just wanted to say is I did go to the meeting there and I had sent in the letter previously opposing change as proposed. At this time, I have no issue with the way the planning zoning has made recommendation. So it's either no change or their change, either one would be fine with me. But as far as the whole area out there, I really hope to make it. That's really all I got. I just want to be on the plan. They did a good job. They were very thorough and professional.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Next I have Ms. McAllister on the same side.
I have property out there where they're thinking about rezoning. I didn't get to see the map after they got finished with their recommendation. So I think I'm thinking along the same lines as Jerry Parton, that for no change or for if the line is drawn on the whole airport road, that going to the east is the city, that would be okay because you already have the property in Barnes there. But going to the west, I'm not for changing that. We have houses over there and people who plan to build over there. And so they don't want to look out their front door and see whatever could be built there, manufacturing, whatever. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have one more, Melita Walker on the same issue.
the other two before me. We would like to talk, or would like to accept the recommendation that the zoning commission left the meeting with. My concern is property values. They're not worth very much right now because people cannot buy a piece of property from the city in order to build homes. But I can only imagine what our property would be worth if it was on industrial.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment. We have first item is the minutes of the previous meeting held December 3rd. Have a copy of those in your packet.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Ms. Cordova, second by Mr. Merrick. There's no further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next, we have a presentation on constituent services by Constance Williams from Senator Ben Ray Lujan's office. Welcome, Constance.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. It's very nice to see y'all. My name is Constance Williams, and I'm a licensed master social worker. I recently passed my clinical exam, so since I'm licensed to say I'll be a clinical social worker. I am glad that I have an opportunity to come today and speak with y'all. Just wanted to kind of talk about constituent services. If people are not familiar, we actually have a Senate office here in Fort Dallas, right at the Economic Development Center. And basically just wanted to talk with y'all a little bit about what services the congressional office offers. And I believe that our presentation is going to be pulled up here in just a moment. But as Senator Lujan's representative, being a social worker, I am in 7 counties. It's going to be Clay, Curry, Roosevelt, Vaca, Chavez, Lee, and Eddy. And so part of my responsibilities is to reach out to local government, reach out to organizations and individuals to make sure that they're having their needs met, have questions answered that they may have with regards to federal oversight, and essentially engage with local governments and commissioners. And so I'm familiar with quite a few of y'all. I have not met Mr. Elkins or Councilmember Elkins, Councilmember Self, or Mr. Rackler in person, but I have met most of y'all in some capacity, whether or not it's been at a meeting or presentation or so. I recently, what this presentation is a little bit about Senator Lujan. I actually met him as a postgraduate student attending a mental health roundtable, and you know, I think a lot of times people think that government is so far away. And I'm here to actually say that government is really right at your fingertips as long as you engage it. I've been working for the senator now at this point since the last year on the House, approximately about 5 weeks before COVID happened. I was supposed to leave to go to DC and do my initial training, and then the world shut down and everything changed. And so the last time I was actually here in this office, Senator Lujan was meeting with former Mayor Jackson, pro tem mayor at the time, Miller, and we kind of talked a little bit about what needs were. I've been in contact with the previous city manager, Sarah Austin, and we actually had an intern with Eastern New Mexico University and their social work program. And that was a really great opportunity for us to engage locally. And we ended up going to one of the presentations, the department presentations that Mrs. Austin had at the time. And we kind of did a needs assessment from listening to all the different departments and things. And we ended up, as part of our process, to send a rundown of what we assessed, things that we thought we would be able to help the city of Portales with regards to what the departments had talked about. And if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. As I said, you know, I've known the senator for quite a while. We actually had a staff training in Albuquerque on earlier last week. And if a lot of people don't know, he's actually from northern New Mexico. Nambe is actually where he's from. He actually does farming, actually involved in ag, on a lot of different levels. So he's very relatable, for me. And so we can go ahead and move forward. He's actually on the, Commerce, Science and Transportation Committee. He's the chair of the Communications, Media and Broadband, Ag, Nutrition and and Forestry, which has to deal with the Farm Bill, which is very important to Roosevelt County specifically, but a lot of the counties in my area. He's also part of the Health Committee, which stands for Health, Education, Labor and Pension, Indian Affairs and the Budget. With the transition of the administration, a lot of those committees could change, could not. I'm not exactly sure. We'll find out in January, but definitely want to just kind of come out and talk with y'all a little bit about how we help with regards to individuals and organizations. So our office helps with federal agencies. If you're having any issues with any federal agency, whether or not it's going to be Veterans Affairs, whether or not it's going to be Social Security, Medicare, Medicare, those are some of the major ones that we deal with on a consistent basis. We also deal with policy and legislative correspondence. Sometimes with regards to those agencies, individuals have issues that come up, whether or not it might be an overpayment with their Social Security income, disability, things of that nature. And so we communicate with the agency on a constituent's behalf. We also do federal grant searches and letters of support. The grant space is very, very robust. And so a lot of times, especially with smaller communities, if you don't have a grant specific person, even if you do, those locating a grant that is specific in what you're trying to do can be a heavy lift. And so part of what we do as congressional delegation is we have a grant specific coordinator. His name is Greg Knagle, and he's actually from Roswell. He helps to locate grants depending upon what organizations complete those forms for. So we have a grant search form, a letters of support form, and basically individuals or organizations complete that, give us kind of the bulk of it, and then we utilize that either as a delegation as a whole or as individual office to try to support organizations in local governments to acquire grants on the federal space. We've recently just concluded the Academy nominations process, which is a really great opportunity for local individuals to get nominated for Service Academy. It's a major accolade, I guess you would say, to be able to go to one of the service academies. And I want to say that I know at least 2 students from the Eastern New Mexico area were part of that process. I would really, really like to get more students involved. I think that there's a lot of space for that. And essentially it amounts to about $100,000 in scholarship money should they complete the task. We go to the next one. So as a social worker, part of my responsibilities besides field work is casework. And so I always say that casework informs the policy side of things. And so we work in all different types of spaces. I was really glad to learn on the House side that the senator actually had one of the highest caseloads with regards to trying to help people. What I've come to find out is that a lot of members have the option to or not to have casework process. Some do not. And so I really think that it's a service for constituents to be able to have this. They come and talk with us about whatever their needs are. Sometimes it is federal specific. Sometimes it's a state issue. Sometimes it's a local issue. But what I love as a social worker is that the senator said, instead of saying, why would we help with this issue, he says, why not? And so he really finds the space to at least connect people with the correct resources, because a lot of times people are, if you're coming to the congressional office, it's because you try to go and deal with it on your own and you're almost at a loss. And so I really like working for the senator in that capacity. Immigration and IRS issues, passports. I actually have a case right now, I just got it last week, where a lady had sent in her IRS payment and it went to the wrong place, and now she's got to deal with penalties, and she's trying to get an abatement and stuff. And so we're able to help out on those capacities, and hopefully we'll be able to have a favorable case concluded with her in a couple of months. On the federal land management issues is also another thing. A lot of there's BLM land, not only Roosevelt, but New Mexico specifically. And so sometimes issues come up in those spaces and we try to help navigate those. So, like I said earlier, people usually come to the congressional office after they try to deal with things in their own and have not been able to do that. Sometimes, it is a difficult and they're frustrated, but I would say government's as good as the people behind it. And so we try to utilize, our office as a resource for individuals. We're able to engage in, like I said, lots of different capacities. We work with state partners, the governor's office, and like I said, sometimes we're able to resolve things in a favorable manner, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we find out more to the story after we get casework going, but, we definitely try our best. We'll go to the next. Like I said, Social Security, disability, or Social Security Administration, there's different facets to that. But we will work with people in trying to get any of those things set up. Department of Veterans Affairs, something that recently came up with regards to that at the very end, you have the PACT Act. So the PACT Act, some people may be familiar with that. It was legislation that was passed in August of 2023, or actually July. And essentially what it did was change the law of how the VA approached claims. And they basically said, hey, if you had certain positions or you were placed in certain areas of the world, and you have certain diseases or ailments, we are going to presume that those were caused by your service. And so it was a major legislation that recently in the newspaper, if you read on Sunday, you'll see in the Eastern New Mexico News that the Inspector General actually has found that they were not necessarily handling the processing of those claims correctly. So if you have been denied for something that you felt should have been directly connected to that, please make contact with our office so that we can follow up with them. I actually had a case earlier this week and sent out something today on this because, like I said, legislation is passed to help people. If it's not helping people, we need to figure out why. Sometimes it's human error. Sometimes it's, we're moving into this AI space and computers are dealing with a lot of processing of things. But if we're able to, we definitely will follow up on this case. So as I mentioned earlier, we do grants. That's a large base and a large portion of our office. We do send out a grants advisory. If you are interested in that, please let me know if you have gotten those. Like I said, we are able to do letters of support for things that you're interested in. Also CRS reports, Congressional Research Services is another resource that constituents can use in a variety of different spaces that talk about different issues from why daylight savings exists to what the focus of congressional and constituent services may be. There's also different spaces in regards to science. PFAS is something that we've been able to locate and get information on. And then we also utilize that because it's a specific resource for congressional offices to help hone in on information that is impacting organizations and individuals on a more direct basis. So generally what we need in order to do casework is we need release information from you that says, hey, you want us to work on your issue and gives us permission to. And then we need a letter that describes what that is. We don't want to do more than what you're asking to. We don't want to do less than what you're asking to. We want to do what you're asking. And so that letter is very important. Sometimes that letter is prohibited to casework because whether or not an individual is illiterate or not able to do those types of things. As a caseworker, I try to be resourceful and get people connected to other resources so that they can kind of talk and create a letter that can help do that. But our office is not able to do that function specifically. Sometimes additional documentation may be needed. Sometimes I always say, even with regards to like VA claims, what I've always told when I'm engaging with active duty soldiers, things of that nature, even people who are out of the service, keep all your documentation. It's super important, even though we think that government maintains a lot of stuff. Sometimes a lot of times they don't. And it's super important to have that information so that you're able to prove what it is that you're talking about. And and a lot of times, depending upon what it is that you're needing, you're able to say, hey, they communicated this to me. Here's what they said. And that is, the key to moving things forward. We cannot be involved in legal matters. There's a separation of powers, which essentially we're a legislative body and, the judicial and executive branches are separate. And so a lot of times people will call us and say, hey, this happened, I would like to sue them, I want you to investigate this, I want you to do that, and we're just not able to do those things. We can do inquiries if the individual is willing to, like I said, do a release, do a letter about the issue, but a lot of times people will call and say, hey, this and this is going on, and we need you to do this, and we just can't go off of things like that, so. The reason that we need the release right there, the Privacy Act of 1974. With regards to HIPAA, sometimes we'll have to do with Medicare or Medicaid. If we want a response back from agencies that are dealing in the healthcare space, we generally would have to ask for a HIPAA release as well. That's not in all cases, but in medical ones, just because it's dealing with medical information. Power of attorney and guardianship, that'll happen a lot in social security cases where an individual doesn't have the capacity to deal with it and they're represented by somebody else. And so we will need that communication. I remember I had a case, it's probably been about a year and a half ago, but it was somebody who was in Florida talking about somebody who was here, and they basically said, hey, this person doesn't have the capacity to do this, but they're sending their money to their VA benefits to somebody who's scamming them, this, that, and the other. And, while I sent the information as a point of reference for the VA to look into it, they can deal with that, we were not able to even send a release to that person because they're indicating that the person was incapacitated and not able to deal with matters on their own. So we really couldn't accept a privacy release from an individual that was incapacitated. Go to the next one. Casework outcomes. So occasionally when we do have favorable outcomes, people want to share that information with others to let them know how a congressional office and how Senator Lujan's office was able to help them, meet whatever needs that they had. And so I was glad to be involved with both of these cases. One of the things that on this first one, it says it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, been raised here for the people to help in any way you can. And I really think that that's important. I think sometimes people feel that congressional offices, wherever you fall, are going to either represent you or deny you based upon your political affiliations. And that is not the case. We're a public office, and it is important for the senator to represent all people. I actually was reading a couple of weeks ago where they did a analysis of all of the members of the Senate, and I want to say that he was number 31 with regards to the 100 senators who work in bipartisan capacity. And so I really think that that's important because, I think there's a spectrum of people's beliefs and a spectrum of people's political affiliations, and it's just a matter of engaging in a public office. So the other one is about tax refunds. These were kind of in the midst of COVID, and so people, the IRS is one of the slowest agencies. They actually were dealing with faxing at the point whenever COVID happened. And so COVID made them speed up into more efficient ways of communication. And we actually just got the ability to email with them just in the last 2 weeks. So that page shows you the way and the speed of government. We'll go to the next one. So congressionally directed spending. This is a space in which the federal government is funded and funds organizations and local governments in two different ways, through the grant process or through congressionally directed spending. Congressionally directed spending had went out under the Obama administration, and during the Biden administration in 2020, it came back. And so right now we're at a standstill whether or not the appropriations process that people had applied for. There was a lot of different committee approvals. Whether or not it actually goes through, I'm not quite sure. But essentially what happens in March, and we'll anticipate that it will happen this year, but essentially in March, we do a call to the community about what projects you kind of have in mind. And it is for local governments, it's for nonprofits, it's not for any for-profit entities. But essentially, it is a way to bypass the competitive grant process and essentially allocate where senators are able to do that for projects in their home states. And so it does help streamline a lot of stuff. People still have to complete the grant or the agency applications, but they don't have to kind of go through the competitive process. It's taking care of all the community side of things. So, I'll be reaching out to y'all, should everything move forward. Ready to come, February 1. Next month. So, these are the ways that the senator maintains contact, talks about various issues and, communicates with people. So, there's that. And then at the end, the next one is my communication or my contact information. If you need to, or would like to, please give me a call. We're actually in we're trying to set up an office in Farmington right now. And then the Albuquerque office is missing off of here. It took 2 years to get the Albuquerque office online. There's a lot that it takes with regards to the Senate process. But we have an office in Portales, so I'm right here, and I think that it's an amazing opportunity to have one here. I am right around the corner, and if you have any questions, I'll give you all my cell phone now. It's 575-825-9804. And I'll also follow up with Mayor Miller and City Manager Moyer. Glad to have him on and look forward to working with y'all in the capacities. Thanks for wanting to do with regards to Portales.
Can you repeat your own minutes? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Constance, thanks you. And I will tell you, I've worked with the senator since back in the days when he was a PRC commissioner, and he's always been responsive. So appreciate your report or presentation tonight. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to discussion items. Our first item is 100% city project, ENMU and city partnership, Dr. Melissa Moyer.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As stated, my name is Dr. Melissa Moyer, and I'm the Master of Social Work Program Director at Eastern. And before this, I was a Bachelor of Social Work Program Director for several years. Prior to that, I worked in the New Mexico Children and Families Department for over 10 years, completing my time with them as a county office manager. I've been practicing clinical social work for 17 years. I want to take a moment before we dive into this. I hope you were provided a one-pager in your packet. Thanks. So I want to take a moment to talk about a couple of terms that some of you may already know, but are crucial to understanding the nature of this project. The first one is the social determinants of health. These are things such as transportation, medical or dental care, housing, food, or even behavioral health care. Having access to them can positively influence our lives in a way that directly affects our quality of life. Research has shown that access to these services increases not only standard of living, but your overall health and longevity. Lack of access to them or instability in accessing them decreases our standard of living and negatively impacts our health and longevity. So the second term is continuous quality improvement. We may have heard this referred to as CQI. And this process is designed to assess a problem, create a plan, to put into action. And then the most important piece is that it completes an evaluation on how effective your efforts were. Since I joined the team at UMass, I've also partnered with the 100% New Mexico initiative to support grassroots community organization around New Mexico. And our work focuses on the social determinants of health and how to help community residents access them. So through my work with 100% New Mexico, I've assisted communities in identifying challenges to accessing services, and then we come up with creative ways that they can increase access for their residents. The 100% model operates on the premise that 100% of your community's residents can access the services they need, and in turn, 100% of them can thrive. The Eastern Social Work Program would like to partner with city leadership in efforts to support access to these vital services in our community. Our program is in process of seeking legislative support to conduct a 3-year research study on increasing access to vital services in rural communities with the support of city departments and leadership. It seems natural to us to partner with Portales as it is where we are. So the first year of this project is outlined on that page for you. Those 7 steps would all be completed within the first year. We would spend time assessing need for access to services, and we're going to do this through surveying residents, conducting community town halls, and interviewing city leaders and department heads, as well as service providers in the community to assess the barriers in accessing services. We will create asset maps of the city and regional services, as well as update any service directories for the community to use. The project will research evidence-informed solutions to the barriers that your community identifies. And then we will help look and source funding for service improvement project opportunities from state, local, and even federal partners. But probably the most exciting part of this for me is the training and the support we intend to provide to our city team. We hope to provide support to help them develop strategic plans where each department will identify a vital service they can work to address and establish a long-term goal to track progress toward. Essentially, we're going to apply continuous quality improvement to the city's efforts to address the standard of living to its residents, if you are open to considering this partnership. Our faculty and research team will stay on as a support to assess the progress, provide supplemental training as needed for an additional 2 years. There is no financial ask of the city, simply permission to consider Portales the identified project partner. And I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has at this time.
Thank you, Melissa. Questions at this time?
Eric, a quick question. I'm just, I apologize. I'm probably just a little confused on this one, but aren't we already in a project with a regional behavioral health thing in Clovis? Is that gonna work hand in hand with that? Is that gonna be competing with that? I just want to make sure we're,
Understood.
I mean, I love everything you're saying and I'm all for it, but I don't want two things competing.
Understood. You're talking about the Fort County Behavioral Health
Yeah.
Consortium. Yes, and Mission Health came in, conducted a needs assessment. We partnered with them early on and we did other work with them to provide social work students for their efforts. This is a little different. This is targeting specifically the city of Portales and its departments in order to develop strategic plans to address things such as housing needs in the community, transportation needs, access to medical, dental, food, those types of things. So if anything, it would just complement.
Thank you. Further questions? I think this is something that the city should participate in. It's something that I was part of a presentation yesterday, and maybe to Mike's point, you know, maybe these people go to those kind of facilities, come back to the community, and then they don't know how they access things after that. And you know, when you were visiting with me earlier, the transportation, the housing, I think you mentioned 5, and then maybe later on, as this develops, there might be 5 more types of things. But I, you know, so I guess what you're asking the city is for your research team in Eastern to work hand in hand with our employees as this is developed, correct?
Correct.
Go ahead.
We have a lot of agencies. I'm on the community service board. We in this kind of way that this will be incorporated into this process as well. The community service center that we have on across the railroad track, we do a lot of stuff for senior citizens and this will they be incorporated in this process?
So we would focus specifically on the city leadership, but input from all of the agencies in the community would be taken in. If I could talk a little bit more. So what Mike was, the mayor was referencing is that the first.
That is my name.
If we talk about the social determinants of health, and we talk about 5 of them would help us survive. And those are the 5 I listed for you. But if we could get a handle on those, then we could really begin to thrive. Things like providing job training, early childhood learning, youth mentoring. I mean, and the list goes on, right? So that if we can tailor our city to run in such a way that it supports the families in it to live a higher quality of life. I mean, as a resident here for over 25 years, that would be something I would love to hang my hat on, is to say that Portales really cares about its residents, and we do. But this is a way to organize our city's efforts in that direction. So we would take on the feedback from our community services center, from our mental health and medical providers in the community for sure. We would run provider town hall.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you said that you're not asking for any funding from the city to do this, are you getting grants? Yes.
We're seeking legislative grow monies at this time. A few senators have expressed an interest in sponsoring this project. And we're basing all the funding to be spent in the first year. We understand our funding, if we're lucky, will come in around October. And then we'll have until the end of June to spend it. That's why the big lift will happen on the front end. And we hope to be presenting a structured strategic plan for your city leaders to be presenting that to you at the end of that fiscal year. And then Eastern will stay on as a form of service to the community without charge.
Mr. Mayor, this question to you, it's on the discussion item, but it's not an action item.
No, I think that if there's I don't think it takes formal action. I think she wanted to advise us. I think if she saw a lot of resistance, that we would come back another way and do that. So, but that's a good question. Thank you. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. City manager's kind of hard to get along with, so good luck. All right, Mr. Mendoza, water update.
But I'm just gonna provide a quick water update regarding production. So right now, we have 25 pumping on the Blackwater well field. And that has a total of 43 in-service wells. That's 25%. If you include Sandhill, that's 39% resident. In November, we cleaned 2 wells, well number 27 and well 16. December, we cleaned well 15, well 17. And in January, we're going to clean well 19 and well 20. And that's basically passivizing, filling and brushing. The Blackwater well field, total resting 850,240 gallons per day. If you put the whole well field, that's 1,327,680 gallons per day. So from November 13th to December 17th, daily average flow is 1,520 gallons per minute, which is 2,188,800 gallons per day. The average tank level between that time was 28 feet. Then out of the 318 total hydrants that were tested, waiting on a little bit more. 58 out of them came back. 22 with a visual. Have 14 total that we've placed. Majority of that time was to get most of the school area. But this is just a visual request. Forward back. The green ones are the ones that we replaced. And this is 2024 project.
Can I ask on that map? So black still needs to be fixed, green has been replaced.
Yes.
Does that include all of our fire hydrants? Okay,
No, this is just the ones that were in operate.
okay.
So, and that was out of 318. There was a total of 58.
What it is, schedule. talking about, in the beginning.
Yes. We're gonna continue knocking out as much as we can. Not all of them have to be replaced. So, we're going through and trying to get to the ones that maybe have a seat stem that just needs some grease or, you know, the bonnet's just looking, gas to replace or something like that. So, not all of them need to be replaced for this time. Gives you in this area. The more industrial area that we can, better fit for the replacement. January's projects, third week of January, Lime Street is kind of the date that third week of January is the date that they're giving us some time for Lime Street. It's been next to utility authority. We're working with the city of the cost to schedule that into during that thing. Exactly.
Questions? Chris?
Excellent. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. Thanks for your hard work.
Can I ask, sorry, we went quickly. So the tanks were at 28 feet, but they're 30-foot tanks and we're resting wells. Why are we not filling those tanks to max capacity?
It's got some leeway in it.
Okay.
But it's got an overflow. We don't want to get too close to that overflow. It'll get,
Okay, so 28, they're full, is what you're saying.
yeah, they're,
Okay.
so anywhere between 28 to
30 max.
9.5 is kind of max. We don't like to
Okay.
get too close to that.
Chris, if you don't mind, can you touch on, do you have enough staff? How's your staffing levels for your specific department?
So we have one.
Thank you.
Flow meters on the tanks?
Those, had a conversation with them and what they should be on the. I don't have a date. That's kind of where we're at, but yeah, it's like.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Next discussion item, Mr. Moyer, is a look ahead to 2025.
Mayor Council. So as we close out 2024 and we on to 2025, just like to highlight 5 different things that are just a small bit of the folks that have building experience. So one of my top priorities is increasing our training and personal development through improved funding sources so that our skills and knowledge. We have better workforce. Second, we are actively exploring water sources to ensure sustainable supply and experience stability. The process will be critical, as you'll find later on in this council meeting. We're going to remain diligent in pursuing those resources. Any setbacks, and we can fall even further behind than we already are. To do more with the less and become more efficient as a city, we must adopt technology and innovation to streamline operations, cut costs, and improve services. So third, we are exploring using AI to assess road conditions, enabling us to prioritize projects and secure funding more effectively. Fourth, potential collaborations with infrastructure as service providers will help modernize and fix our water and wastewater systems. Smart meters and SCADA systems will improve water management, predict leaks, and address issues proactively, saving time, money, and resources. We do have options to fix our water infrastructure, and we are actively exploring them. These steps will enhance service delivery and ensure taxpayer dollars are spent wisely. With these advancements, we can and will reshape our city over the next 5 years. Technology and infrastructure alone won't drive progress. We need the energy and involvement of our community. So fifth, another key focus is enhancing parks, fields, downtown, and recreation areas. These spaces are vital to our residents' health and well-being. And while I am grateful for the volunteers who work tirelessly to improve these areas, we need to expand community partnerships and continue to apply for grants, again, as you'll hear about tonight, so that we can restore and enhance these spaces, making them a point of pride for everyone. Progress isn't always cheap, easy, or fast, but it's necessary. Together, we can create a stronger, more efficient, and more connected city. Thank you for your continued support and commitment. I'll stand for any questions.
I want to go back, if I may, to the AI, just to try and understand what in the world you said.
Okay.
What are we doing with AI?
So there is road assessment survey. So they take artificial intelligence, they basically strap an iPhone to a vehicle in the front and they go down. It takes pictures of the road I want to say every 4 to 5 feet, and it analyzes your roads and it's going to tell you what are your worst roads, what do you need to do for this, cracks, different things, and you have the pictures and you have all the data to do that. Then you can outline a project. It'll tell you how wide the road is, what do you need, and then that way you can base off your materials and so you can get a better cost estimate as to what we're gonna need. So by having that information, when we go for funding, we actually have data and numbers to support what we're asking for. It's amazing technology. And it's newer and it's a lot easier than what they used to do, which is drive around and kind of like test roads and different things.
Oh, sorry.
What's that?
I said they better strap it on good.
Yeah, it just sits in the windshield.
Same project they use in Albuquerque. Similar project in Albuquerque.
They are.
And it actually identify roads that need to be regraded and set it up, so it's new technology to us, but it's being used in.
Correct. Bernalillo County is using it. And the same company that's doing that is the one that we're talking to.
I just would like to please show us some of that when it first gets started. I'd love to see what it is it's showing you.
Right.
I mean, I would just love to see a sample once we get going and not wait till it's over and go.
What they showed us was a sample of Bernalillo County and it was pretty impressive.
So once we
what it can
start,
do.
if we could see.
Right, and then we would have everything and we could even depending on how you extract the information and everything, we could probably put it up on the website so people know and that it just lets us know where we need to start. And that's really what we're looking for.
Do we know the cost associated with it?
We do not. I've asked for that. So
Is this based on traffic flow numbers too?
no, it's purely based on road conditions. They will ride every road that is in the city.
Then I suppose it comes back to us.
Yeah.
So what roads
The
did we
road-
figure out? Well,
okay, where-
that was not used as much as Abilene and Street.
And that's how you that's how you work down your list and try to figure it out.
Can I ask on the smart meters, what are your plans for the smart meters for water?
So infrastructure as a service is a new concept in New Mexico. Whereas you don't have to use the upfront capital. So your smart meter it's replacing all of our water meters with smart meters that you don't need to actually go there, Wi-Fi, everything like that. And they're down to like the nitty gritty of how much water you're using or how much it'll be able to detect leaks. And so we'll be able to accurately charge for what people are using. We'll also be putting these out at our well fields and our tanks, and we'll be actually, our production. So this goes into, fixing our water effectiveness plan, figuring out production and usage. So
we're essentially renting meters.
no, it depends on, there's two different types. So one is a rent, but they provide upgrades if something breaks. They come out, they do all that work. There is another service, same type of service that uses capital money. And when you pay it back in your usage fee, you're buying the stuff. So there's two different things, and I'm looking at both of them.
I just
Same as the
remember,
SCADA system.
I remember sitting in one with Chris, and they were saying that for us to change out a meter, they could get through like 10 a month, and we have like 1,800 of them, and that's 15 years.
Correct.
So
They bring
contractors.
They bring
and
all the
wipe it
people
all up.
in and they do it all in one shot.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, the water co-op used
They
that
did.
service recently to upgrade their
Correct.
meters. Okay.
And that's, when I went to the infrastructure conference, that's how I actually, seeing their, they were actually on one of their flyers, so started talking to them and started that conversation with them, but there is also another company does a similar service and actually probably does a little bit more to help out, that could help the city, so I'm weighing both options.
We've been working on our meters forever.
Correct.
Well, what's the difference now?
We would have somebody come in and do this for us and it would just be done.
Because I know I had a big old leak and they came from City Hall and told me that I better fix that leak, which when it cost a lot of money and they understood.
Is that leak
Well, I
on
don't
your
know
side
what's
or on the
different
city
is.
side?
Now I think.
It's different technology.
It's different technology. The technology, so we're replacing meters that, to be honest, probably need to be replaced already again.
I keep,
Correct. And it's just, it comes down to staff and the amount of time we have to dedicate to
I
do
got
that.
another question that I didn't ask a little while ago. EPCOR gave us a report, I don't know how many weeks ago, 3 weeks,
Yes, sir.
5 weeks. Have you done anything that, to fix all the,
Safety
yeah,
issues we have. So we ordered, so we're doing stickers, or we've done the stickers, we've done locks on everything that needs locks. We're getting quotes for fencing and we're waiting for the, I guess. We gotta go through the winter, but we'll be doing, we'll be pouring our own concrete pads and redoing stanchions as much as we can in-house. And then we can't get that report, their actual report from EPCOR. So we might have to, for us to go out and visit every well and do everything and find everything that their experts found, we can, but we might also have somebody come in and help us do an assessment. To further, further find the stuff that we need to fix.
If there's no further questions, Chris, I appreciate that report. I appreciate the look ahead. It's refreshing to see this and see that you have a plan for us moving forward. And I truly appreciate that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to our action items. Our first item is ratification of city manager signature on the FY 2025 memorandum of agreement for transit, an agreement between the New Mexico Department of Transportation and the city of Portales. Ms. Slopes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me be in front of you and attempt to present the document I have before me. It's something we do every year, so it's not anything new and not very dramatically different from past documentations. It's called a memorandum of agreement between the New Mexico Department of Transportation and the city of Portales. And basically, it functions as any basic memorandum of agreement or a contract that you might be familiar with. And if you've read through the document, you'll see that it provides what we applied for from the New Mexico Department of Transportation as far as grant funding to the city of Portales to help us operate the transit department. This was applied for by our former coordinator, Catherine Hall. And you have to apply for these earlier than it was applied for last year. She sent the grant for this fiscal year 25 grant money. She sent in this time last year. She was making the pleas to council for their approval. And that's kind of what we did in August when Ms. Bailey presented the fiscal year 26 application for the grant money. This is basically confirming or providing to us a promise for their support for the fiscal year 2025. It also, in this memorandum, it will outline basically instructions and promises that we as the city of Portales will follow. It kind of provides the parameters and the boundaries for us that we're supposed to follow. So that we do procurement properly, so that we pick people up and deliver people properly, that we provide care of the vehicles properly. So it provides us with the arrangements that we are to follow. And by ratifying this document that has already been signed by the city manager, it's just confirming our intent to follow these parameters and boundaries provided to us by the New Mexico DOT.
Thank you. Questions?
Page two. There's a breakdown of the funding.
Yes,
The administration part of that, is that all the drivers or is that director of the program? How does that like?
the administration is the part, basically the office, what you might call office work. And the operational, if you see in the second line there, that is the section that allows us to get on the road, to have the vehicles, to provide repair of the vehicles. So when it refers to administration, which is an 80-20 match, 20 being the Portales portion of support, that is purchasing, budgeting. It is providing people. It's helping to pay for our personnel and staff. So that's a very critical part of the grant. In addition to the operating.
Yes, sir.
As far as an overall number, is the 120, almost 124,000 fairly close to in line with the past? Is that because some of us are something we don't know what it was before. So.
Sure. My understanding based on the historical investigation of what has been done with transit and what we've asked for in the past, this is fairly close to what has been asked for.
So we're totally budgeting for this kind of a.
Yes, it's not dramatically different. It doesn't dramatically increase from one year to the next. You may see that change in the future, given our directives from the NMDOT and what they're wanting us to do and the need for vehicles perhaps. But from what we're seeing as we've performed investigations and research, this is not a dramatic difference. It's increased slightly every single year to account for what you might say cost of living,
Thank you.
so to speak.
Councilman, at one point in time, this council actually said, we're not gonna spend any more than this amount. And then that became, because of the things she just said, kind of impractical. But we still try to keep it within, our match to be within where we were at.
That's fair.
Further questions? What's the pleasure of the council?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, second by Mr. Elkins. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wilkes.
Thank you.
Move on to our next action item. Going to community services, Ms. McClellan. The first one is approval of recommendation for resolution number PC 2024-2025-33 is zone change for the Portales Industrial Park for the purpose of bringing property into compliance, unanimously approved by the P and Z Commission. Ms. McClellan.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So what we have here is what P and Z has recommended. So when we originally brought it, you have to do the whole property. We originally asked for this whole property, which is R028593 to be M2. It went to planning and zoning, as Mr. Parton said. Planning and zoning gave a lot of discussion, and they came up with a really good idea to help maintain part of this being residential and then bringing this into compliance. And that was by doing the right 1/3, which is that yellow section, making that an M2 or an M1. And then leaving the zoning on the other, which would be single family residential. This was originally brought up because we actually noticed the airport, the operational airport had been brought in as an R1 and was never zone changed properly. So we looked around to see what other city properties were not in compliance. And this one was a big one. And so we wanted to bring the city into compliance by getting the zone change done. If we go to the next one, it's Chris. So we did bring this to staff to see if the 1/3 would work. This was staff's recommendation. The difference between the first one and this one, which would be what P&Z recommended and what staff is asking you to reconsider, is this small section in the bottom. The staff, Steve Travis's department, they store materials there. They call it the boneyard, but there's quite a few construction materials that are already there. When we asked if they wanted to include that in planning and zonings, they said they didn't want it included. They wanted the materials moved. We did check with Steve, and there wasn't any readily options to move this amount of materials to. They like this location because it is within reach of the drivers, but it's still mostly in an industrial area. You have a property that's abutting one of those longer properties that we would consider a salvage yard that has a bunch of abandoned cars on it. You have that little corner there, which is a power station. I believe Excel owns it. And then across the street is DFA, which is also a light manufacturing zone. So this is what we request for you to consider. Let's Chris, we go to the next one. So that was the property in question, just so you can kind of see what the zoning map looks like. You can see for zone changes, we do try to have them abutting that zone already. So we asked for technically an M2, but an M1 would work just as well, if you're more comfortable with that. And as you can see, that little quote unquote barnyard area is right up against that M2. I believe that is it. If you have any questions. Oh, one more slide. Okay, so we sent out 41 certified letters to property owners in the area. Received 2 against, 6 certified to public utilities. Received 0 against. We did have a public hearing for this on December 9th. 6 property owners in the area spoke against this application at the public hearing. This application, of course, being the whole thing being zone changed. Some of them spoke here, but a quick summary was they were concerned about property values, what they would see when they exited their property, and the possibility if we zone the whole thing M1, what the city could put there in the future versus what's already there. And so P&Z approved the zone change for that first slide, which is the eastern third with 4 and 0 against. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Hold on. No. Sorry, this is just a discussion now for the council. And maybe we'll ask the question you're asking. Okay. Discussion.
I have a question. Well, I probably have multiple, but I'll just start with one. So we also have a recreational facility, a reclaimed water pond, and then a walking track that I think we received a grant from maybe 8 to 10 years ago. Why would we want to rezone that as industrial if we just got a grant for something there?
So R1s do not allow for walking trails or reuse ponds. It's just single family residential. If a citizen came to me and said, hey, I want to put this walking trail on my property zoned R1, we would say no, that you need to do a zone change. Single family residential really only allows for single family residentials. So that's part of the walking trail is also out of compliance. So we're trying to just bring that in. You can pretty much put a long list of the M1. Recreational is covered in that.
Is there not just a recreational zone?
There is not. You have your residential zones, your commercial zones, and then your manufacturing zones.
Can you explain the
Oh, in
difference
here.
between M1 and M2? please?
Yeah, so your M1 is considered your light manufacturing zones. It covers the majority of everything you see. BFAs and M1s, that can be your big factories. Your M2 covers what M1 doesn't, which is like making construction materials. That one's pretty intense. The only reason we asked for an M2 is we're not entirely sure what that pond would fall under. But looking over it, Everything else falls under an M1, so an M1 would still suffice. But we turn the airport into an M2 just to cover absolutely everything.
On that point, if we did this M1 and you found out later that the pond wasn't, we can just get a special use permit from that, because
Correct.
that's allowed for under our ordinance as well for governmental construction, not only the city, county, federal, whatever.
Correct.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, and I may be wrong, but I thought there was a difference between M1 and M2 as far as residential was concerned. I thought under one of them, it was still allowed, one it's not.
No, so how our ordinance works, it's rolling pretty much. So anything that is an R1 can go in an R2, anything in R2 can go into a C1, which includes R1 and C2. So when you have M2, you can put single family all the way to whatever it's heavy manufacturing. Your heavy manufacturing.
I think that's part of the concern, and probably from their point of view, they don't want just anything there.
Correct. And that was why the recommendation was just to do the other part and then leave the rest single family residential.
Now, was it presented at the meeting? You're saying that the city, Steve Chavez wants that little part at the bottom. Is that?
It was brought up with it that we asked if that was included because if there were materials in there. They said no, that they didn't want it included in their recommendation because they wanted those materials moved. So we went to Steve after the recommendation and says, where could you theoretically move these materials? He said he did not have somewhere readily available for that.
So in other words, planning and zoning said no to that, but Steve's saying.
So that's why this is what staff recommendation is, but the first one shows what exactly theirs was. So he would, we would request that bottom part be included. If it's not included, we'll have to haul that material somewhere else.
Get a special use permit.
We can request a special use permit, yes. It is,
It's allowed.
it's about $500 to $600 to request that. Just because we have to send out the same 41 letters plus the same 7 letters. Have another public hearing and bring it to you guys. It's still an option though.
So can you reconcile that with this?
So I gave you that.
This is way different from.
Well, that
I don't know if it
absolutely,
is.
it's absolutely different. I wanted to see it. We went to a RCCDC meeting, and this was something that was designed in 2011 that had recreation as it has all these colors. Take one I've got next to it just so you can see it. Or
Sorry.
Christine, I gave it to you. Yeah. How about you do that so that we're not just blindly talking?
And I believe Mr. Parton was very involved in this, if I'm not mistaken.
All it showed was, maybe an expansion of the 9-hole golf course to an 18-hole golf course from that land that y'all had wanted to keep as residential. Which I would love to see happen. I think mainly water is the issue, but now that we have this pond right here, that may help alleviate some of those issues. If we were to utilize the rest of that to build another 18, this is just a map that we found at our meeting that it kind of showed like we'd already talked about some zone changes in this area. And I thought, hey, maybe this might be a good thing as a talking point to look at.
I guess what I'm asking is that rectangle that we're talking about approving, does it overlay on top of all those colors? Does it? I don't understand where it fits into this map.
It's over on the top.
Top right. That would be code. You can see the softball complex that's not highlighted.
Okay. Oh, right.
The golf course we're talking about right here.
Yeah, so just the right side of it. But I
And
couldn't
just
tell that from the
just
pictures.
that pink stuff up there.
Yes.
See the softball complex there. Circle.
And it looks like they wanted a skate park and then I can't read what that other thing said, an indoor outdoor facility for multi-purpose. So to me, it looks just like it's a bunch of recreational use with an expanded golf course to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just something that we found yesterday. And so I wanted us to at least have it.
And it looks like the proposed zone change. I can't tell what that little bottom part's supposed to be. Can you scroll down to what we call the boneyard?
Construction
So it looks like that would have
or
probably
commercial, I
been,
mean.
so it looks like the zone change really wouldn't mess with any of those planned recreational. If that was how we went forward, that would all be in the R1 zone, which would need special use permits moving forward. Or parks, forgot about that. Parks is a zone that you could have it declared.
So
That whole
parks
site.
is a zone, so we could make this entire thing a parks zone?
You could, it'll put us in violation with what's already there.
For,
But we could
for
do that.
just what staff recommends and y'all's in the very top with it where we have the water department. That stuff needs to be then into,
Yeah,
but like the city recreation complex and then the big facility could just be zoned as a park and leave it alone, correct?
but yeah, yeah, you could request that we replat it for what you would like to see as parks, what would you like to see residential, and what you guys would like to see as manufacturing. We do the two zones anyways, we have to replat it, so you guys can tailor that to what you would like to see.
Go ahead.
Why are we going all the way to manufacturing? Why aren't we just going to?
Because commercial C2s do not cover everything that is already here. The storage of construction materials, the warehousing full of equipment, and the fact that we use our dumpsters and our trash trucks there, which is considered an equipment transport yard, is an M1. So an M1 is what covers that first part. So we just went with the Zonus, and I'm not sure what that reuse pond is, which is why I went to an M2, but we definitely know it has to be an M1.
Because an M2 is just a catch-all that anything can go there.
Yeah, so an M2 is pretty much anything. It's the highest zone you can do, and it includes all your residential, all your commercial, and all your manufacturing.
I have one question. So if it's a high manufacturing company that's coming in, they would have to come to us for approval anyway, correct?
Yeah,
Based off of our water
technically, this
usage?
is not an industrial park. It was never labeled as an industrial. It's just something, it's a name that came about because it's on industrial drive, but it's not a designated industrial.
Correct, and we're not looking to put factories just to cover what's already there, just to bring us in compliance.
The actual industrial park is south, it's a little bit to the east, it goes back out to the.
Right. And then the airport around the airport.
Yes, right.
I do have a comment. So I don't know if I was allowed to, but I did drive out to that boneyard. And it has probably 80 to 100 just old dumpsters that are just sitting there, old water tanks, old light posts. Is that not something that we can just go scrap and instead of just storing a bunch of stuff that we're never going to use and letting it fall down? I mean, it just looks trashy. I mean, it's trash, but why are we even keeping it? That's what I don't understand.
Put the question over there.
To me, it'd be easier than rezoning, just get rid of this stuff, haul it off and sell it.
The rock and material, the rock and material is the one stuff that we have to worry about. The rock and caliche and stuff that we keep there, that falls under. Yeah, and we do use that.
I think I'm fine with the stuff that we can use, but the old dumpster, there, I mean, there's 100 of them just sitting.
And there's fixing to be more.
Yeah, 1,200 of them.
And I'm gonna talk about this later about dumpsters, but yeah, we have to find a way to do that. I don't know the exact process because.
Can we not take them to Ed's and scrap them?
That I think has to go, that all has to be, it has to be categorized, it has to be cataloged, and I think it has to go before council.
Yeah, we have to declare to salvage property and then do that, but there's a way to do it.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
a way.
but we can't just load them up and take them to Ed's.
And we can auction.
Clear and salvage, sell it like that.
It's pretty much the same way.
For vehicles.
Have to get rid of it.
Right.
Since it's funded through public funds, you can't just dispose of it, put that money back into your coffers. It's got to be.
I agree. I'm just saying, why don't we just get rid of it?
Let's stick to the issue at hand. I understand that your comment has something to do with the issue, but.
We still have the caliche and the rock, but we have to.
Okay.
And you make a good point, need to get rid of that stuff, but we still have an issue. Or staff says we have an issue.
Of which we can get a special use permit.
So why did planning and zoning not want the boneyard in it too? Do they have a specific reason?
They just said they'd prefer to see everything moved, even the rock and the caliche. And that's where really the only property that we don't have is in town is quite a distance that we'll have to drive to get it, like we're thinking the well field, that type of stuff. So this is the only place that's really not that residential. As I said, it's surrounded by M1s, what would be kind of considered a salvage yard there. So you can request that it get cleaned up and still be allowed to keep our construction material there.
Are those not homes all along Road 6?
No, there are homes, that's why I said it's not as residential. We have some property in town that could be moved to, but that's much more residential where this has actual like manufacturing around it.
If the council were to go with the staff recommendation, how does that work based on the recommendation that we have already from planning and zoning?
That's where it's Steve normally. But I think you can accept theirs with amendments. You can accept theirs and then say with the addition of including staff's recommendation on the boneyard.
Can we just accept the one that these folks have already been a part of? And then come back later? I know it's another $600, but I don't care. The community deserves to be a part of that process for what you're adding. So I think we should go back to the planning and zoning and do that one by itself.
That is your recommendation.
And I'm just commenting here, but my comment is I'd rather go with what the community wanted to do and agreed to. And if you want to do something else, fine, let's bring it back.
It's 100% up to you.
And then come to the meetings again and, that way they still get their input.
Yeah, as I said, you can accept it as is, you can make amendments to it, you can send it back to do.
But
If
the
we
as
do,
is the original rectangle.
correct, the as
Not
is the
that.
one before that. We will have to do multiple surveys. If you accept it as is, we're gonna get it replatted. And so then if we change it again, we're gonna have to go back and replat the new section. So that is the only thing, we're the zones that are gonna be separate, we're actually making that separate piece of the property.
Can I ask, why would we not, if we already have designated parks there, why would we not go, and we're going to replat it anyway, why would we not just zone the parks as parks?
If you guys
And
look
then
at that,
zone the rest, the water, the reuse, the senior citizen center and y'all's water department and dumpster place. The M2. I mean, to me, that makes sense and that would be the most correct.
yes, you guys can, at this meeting, any one you go, we'll do the replat and the zoning for that. If you'd like us to bring it back, we'll just have to change it again at a later date. And just redo probably some of our surveys.
I understand where you're coming from, but to the point that was made earlier, that this is what the public's participated in and understands, and that's what the planning commission bought. And if I understand her correctly, those other issues, parks, whatever, are allowed in that M1. You make a really good point. I'm just throwing that out there.
I just don't want to add something that the staff asked for that the community didn't know until tonight. I just don't like that.
Well, originally the staff did ask for that to be changed because we asked for the whole
But
thing.
they said they'd rather not.
Correct. The planning and zoning commission recommendation was
The one
1/3.
rectangle, I'm still not looking at the right,
Yeah, we go to the first one.
not that, that's what we're voting.
That's what the PNC brought to us.
Whenever you're ready, let me know.
I'm ready whenever.
I make a motion, we accept what the planning and zoning committee has brought before us. If the city staff has other things they'd like to bring up, we can approach one another time.
So,
Okay, I have a motion and a second to go with the recommendation of the planning and zoning that was brought to us, which was the first slide we saw. And if there's no further discussion, I'm going to try this on a voice vote. It's not our resolution. Just accepting their resolution. So all those in favor of the motion, and everybody understands the motion, right? Good. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the motion? Okay, that motion passes. And I'm not sure, but Mr. Rackler made the motion. Mr. Robinson seconded it. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go to item 2. And that is approval of recommendation for resolution number PC 2024-2025 34, the vacation of right of way of 110 feet, 18 inches by 30 feet of the platted but underdeveloped road known as East Noble Street. Once again, unanimously approved by P&Z Commission.
All right, thank you, Mayor Council. So this is for a vacation of right of way. This property may look familiar to some of you. They did a previous vacation. So the original story is that property, 7707. When they bought the property, a surveyor mistakenly had the road as vacated. So the deed included part of city land when they were paying taxes on. So they came to the city, they got the part they were paying taxes on vacated, so it was returned to them. They originally wanted to vacate this whole stretch, but at the time, someone else lived at 7709 and protested it. So they just did the vacation on their property. Since then, these applicants have actually bought the property right in front of them. So that protest is no longer there. So they would like to move forward, seeking the vacation of that right of way. Because they had that plat that showed it was closed and they owned it, they also did put a lot of their utilities in that right of way. Their personal utilities, they have a gate there. That's their ingress egress. The city was only concerned at the time was this would landlock the rear one. So they're replatting it into one big piece of property. So no longer be landlocked. Next slide. So here is the official plat that the signatures would be going on. It's a 110.18 feet by 30 feet. There is a electricity pole in there, so they are working with Excel to get an easement. So Excel still have access for poles. It'll be congruent on their ability to get that easement. Excel has done these easements in the past, and they did go to P&Z, and P&Z recommended that the lots be combined, and the property owners, or it'd be approved on the contingency of properties being combined, so there's no landlocked and that easement. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to stand for them, and the applicants are also in crowd in case you have any questions.
Questions for Ms. McClellan? What's the pleasure of the council if there's no questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rackler, a second by Mr. Merrick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Kelly. Next is our water department. It's a request of approval of resolution number 2024-49, well food improvements 6303 and loan grant agreement. Mr. Moyer.
Mayor, council, so I'm gonna present, Ms. Flores is on Zoom to answer any questions after I'm done. The massive amount of papers you have before you are funding from the Water Trust Board for well field improvements. It's gonna be a grant in the amount of $3.2 million with a loan amount of $357,000. So this is basically phase one is identified in the updated PER is to install new wells, associated piping, install monitor wells, design and construct a new 3 million gallon tank. Critical infrastructure replacements of line and valves, and this can be broken down into phase projects. So we're going to use it to acquire, plan, design, study, permits, electrical, SCADA, construction management, transmission lines, and booster station in the Blackwater wellfield water supply. Comprises drilling new wells and in Blackwater and in the area east of the existing well field to the state line with Texas. Booster station with storage tanks will be constructed in the existing well field on City of Portales owned land. Station will permit the efficient collection, treatment, and transmission of the water produced in the proposed new sections of the well field on state of New Mexico land. Proposed locations for new supply wells and locations of proposed transmission pipelines will be determined by test hole evaluation for site location. For the purposes of cost estimating, it was assumed that all the new well sites will be subject to test hole evaluation first, and that supply wells will be constructed at each site based on the characterization of test holes. Land acquisition is needed for well field development and for source water protection. Previous phase of this project provided data to the engineers showing that it is necessary to expand our well field to new areas outside of the current well field that have little or no irrigation present. 3 phases identified in the updated PER. And this application focuses on the most immediate components of phase 1. The previous phase gave the city 4 redrilled wells that increased the overall production capability. These additions have been critical, however, additional wells are needed to meet demand. So this is for design, any surveys, land acquisition, easements, any money that is not that is left over can be reallocated to the construction phase. So we would not waste any of this money. So
Go ahead.
First off, we were supposedly allocated 7,500,000.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Originally.
And we dropped it down to the 3.576. Based off of the phases that they wanted us to do.
So are you saying there's any funds in there for construction? Or is this? all
Not
planning?
currently. This is all for planning, land acquisition, design, surveys, any environmental surveys, any easements, project management. But any funds that are left over, and we can revert those to construction.
You were saying. You kept referring to PER. It's PER.
Yes, sir.
Preliminary engineering.
Yes.
Is this the one that was done by PBSNA?
Yes. Yes.
So this is part of the project that they have put forward.
For the well field, yes.
So does that cover the terminology, going out and mapping the geophysical, the well field?
You talk about the geophysical survey?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are our odds of going back? Once we get to that point and get the other half of the money we were first allotted for the construction? Seems like we just took it all and then rolled half of it. into
So the
construction.
Water Trust Board would not let us take it all at the same time. They wanted us to do it in phases. We'll get the money. They know that that's what we need. They did not give it all out at one
They
time.
dropped the ball and stuff.
That's not like we start the project now and then they're just gonna drop and kind of drop us, not move forward.
Correct.
Thank you, so for.
Well, that answers some of my questions. But I've done a little check. Contacts that were civil engineers. Ask them about the scope of this. He's done this for 30 years and has never used $3.5 million in planning time a project.
Right.
So that's where my initial questions came in, but you're throwing some things in there that and what you were reading a minute ago, I didn't find that anywhere in this document. Because you were laying out some things that I haven't read. As far as the land acquisitions and the
All that information was,
things like that.
all the information was for other applications. So that's what was tied into the actual applications for the Water Trust Board for 2024.
Okay. So you made the application with that wording, but it's not in this contract that we're getting back from.
No, because after everything was taken care of, that first initial application was done by the former capital project administrator. So that they were going off of that. It was supposed to be plan, design, and construction, but the Water Trust Board wouldn't take it that way because you can't do construction until you're dig ready. And we're not anywhere near that because we have to do plan and design first. And that's what 2024 application is for.
And you'll still have to go out for RFPs.
Yes.
Water Trust Board applications, it's an 18-month process.
Mhm.
So applications from 2024 are just now coming through. And then we'll do 2025, which will come through at the end of 2025. It's a long process and a lot of things start overlapping.
I just wish that we didn't have to muddle through all of this legal terminology. I mean, they've got page after page after.
That is
page,
correct.
repetitive things in here.
And it went through the general counsel that the New Mexico Municipal League assigned to us, and they are very familiar with water trust board applications.
To the blah, blah.
And all the legal
There's a lot of
jargon that goes with it.
Mr. Miller, I've got a question. And I think I know the answer to this, but for the last water trust board application we did, there was a little disclaimer that Mr. Dorn yourself pointed out that
Correct.
if we go through with this, you can't be sold to an outside entity, you can't go private for your water utility,
So
correct?
I made a phone call. I made a couple of phone calls on that. And talked to water trust board member and then somebody that does the water trust board stuff through the New Mexico Finance Authority. It is correct. So the water trust board can come back and will try to come back for any monies that they have put towards projects that have either not been completed or have not completed their useful life. And it will also start affecting us in how much funding we actually get based off of, for a while, nobody was applying for water trust board funds. Nobody really knew about it. It really wasn't a thing. Now cities know about it. It's a big project and more are applying. So the funds are going to start shrinking for us if other communities show more of a need than we have, especially if we're going to start, if we privatize.
Okay. It appears to me, and this is more of a comment than a question, but if we continue down this path of accepting more and more water trust board funding, it's just going to push us further and further away from EPCOR. So to me, it seems like we're really just pushing them aside and saying, we got this ourselves, and we're going to do the exact same thing we've been doing for the last 30 years. That's all I see. And that's kind of a blunt comment. But if that's truly the direction that this city wants to go, we need to stop stringing along EPCOR, making them believe that we want to move forward with them. If we continue doing this and requesting more funding, that's locking us in.
Can I make a comment? And you're absolutely correct. The question, the real question is, if we don't do this, and then contract does not get negotiated, where does that leave us in future? If we don't have this money, we can't move forward to do the things that we need to do now. So
well,
it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, you just can't get state funding. We can still internally generate the funding necessary through the utility itself. I mean, that's what all the private utilities do. This is just to get a grant from somebody. You can still build it into the rates, which is what EPCOR is going to do. We're just pushing ourselves further and further away from being able to do that.
Correct. The problem is we have not built that into the rates, and we are behind. This is a kickstart to what we need.
Well, that still won't put it into the rates because we're getting a grant for it. And that's not
correct, but we do not have the capital to push forward with the things that we need to do at this time.
I think you also have to remember that this is what you're talking about is an outright takeover by the private. There's still an option out there for them to do a joint where they run the utility for the city.
Mhm.
I don't know if that was going to be an option that they're going to present to us here in a few weeks. If that's something that we can still entertain, or whether, I mean, it's definitely going to throw a bump in the road for us.
Mhm.
But, I think we've got to still pursue what we're doing, but just keep our minds open to the possibility of happening.
And I think EPCOR is aware of what you're talking about. And I mean, we can still move forward as this thing progresses. And if we come to some sort of an agreement or disagreement, part of that agreement would include, you're going to take care of the clawback. Because the work's getting done.
At a much more inflated cost because we're having to go through Davis-Bacon. So $3.5 million for the planning of a project is outrageous. We do $20 million work plans and we go get engineering studies, the electric utility, and it cost us 100 grand. But we're spending 3.5 million. To me, it's just idiotic.
Wish it was cheaper. State
It is when you go
state
private.
Procurement,
Well,
government procurement is not the cheapest way to do business. The government procurement is not the cheapest way to do business, but it's what we have to do.
I've still got issues with the fact that the way that was read off of there was our application, and that wording is not in this contract. So, I mean, the contract basically states cost of designing and surveying a booster station with storage tanks in the existing well field, including transmission pipelines, and solely in the manner described in the loan grant agreement, providing for the pledge and payment of the loan amount. And then it goes into the percentages that will be paid back according to the gross receipts tax that was imposed on July 1st, 1995. Nowhere in there does it say anything about construction or remodifying wells or any of that stuff. So that throws up a flag to me. If it's not in this contract, we're fixing to sign with what the trust for it. Is it covered? And are we gonna have?
In this funds, construction is not covered. Which we would have to revert and go and get it allocated for that.
Which
Which could
goes
be
back to
denied.
what Preston is saying, that $3.5 million, we're not gonna use, but I would hope like 10% of that to do what we're talking about.
Correct. When they made the original application, like Ashley said, it was for design, plan, and construction. The Water Trust Board would not let us continue with that, so we had to redo and reallocate. So we went based off of that.
But we have been told that any remaining funds can roll over to construction.
Correct.
By the Water Trust Board people.
Yes. NMFA.
Does that not need to be in the contract? Is not what's in the contract all that matters? If it's on an application that we wrote down and said, we would like this to roll over into the construction. I see what you're saying, though, that if it's not in the document, it's not happening.
I agree. And even with the phone call of somebody saying, yeah, you can roll that over, that's not written down.
Those questions I need a lawyer for, so.
Well, we have access to the municipal league to maybe get somebody to help us iron that out. I'm kind of on board with, I don't want us to be losing half this money because it wasn't clarified in the document that we could roll. And then all of a sudden we got 250,000 or 2,500,000 sitting there that we didn't use for the planning, and we lose it. So we didn't have it in here that says we could roll it. Can we, approach the municipal league about helping clarify that?
We can contact them.
What kind of
They're-
deadline are we on?
Ashley. It says closing date of January 24th, so you're not.
We have maybe 2 more meetings. Get some clarification.
I don't think she heard you.
Oh, there you
I
go.
can barely hear y'all.
It
What
says
happened?
January 24th.
When does this have to be approved by?
I believe by,
The closing date I say is January 24th.
yeah, but we have to get it back to the. Oh, man, let me look real quick. Hold on. I have the calendar right here.
Our first meeting in January is January 7th.
Yeah, still, and we have even one more before the 2 of them.
No.
Yeah. Our next meeting is January 7th. Yeah. And the next meeting after that's January 21st. So we do before that deadline,
But not necessarily in time to get it done.
I don't want to be a stick in the mud, and I mean, we need to be moving forward on things and get water secure for city and everything, but I just want to make sure.
The only thing I would say is it talks about project description. It says shall include such other related work and revisions necessary to complete the project. If land acquisition is required, then
But what page are
I'm
you
not a
reading?
lawyer, but it seems like it would.
Well, that's a pretty broad term for the definition that they gave for that, so. Throw a lot of things in there that are just needed to complete the project. So, I would rather see it spelled out, this could be used for these construction costs or these well-filled, the things that you were reading out of the application.
Right.
If it was worded in there that those same things were in this contract, I wouldn't have a problem at all, Si.
Kind of like you, I don't like pushing things off for another 2 weeks because we're trying to get, you know, we're a year into this, being council members and must feel like we're still treading water, but we got to do things right, right? I would like to see us look to the municipal league to clarify that by the June 3rd or January 3rd meeting.
And I would say, well, outside the,
We're already in the queue for this year.
This is funds that have been
We've been
awarded to us.
approved
We're
though for more funds that we
Right.
requested
in
through
23.
the Water Trust Board group to present to the legislature.
Correct. So funds that we're applying for at this time.
Right. So whatever we learn in this jaunt here, we need to make sure that we do the same thing.
Basically, we go, you're pre-approved for a car loan. This is signing on the dotted line to get the money so you can pay for the car.
More for a test drive. We don't get the construction done. We don't get it yet.
Fair enough.
My whole thing is we were told previously that we were looking at $500,000 to renovate a tank. Then we found out later that it was for the planning and design of doing a tank that we've already got established. It's already there. There shouldn't be any planning and design to it. It's just a matter of walking in and saying, it's gonna take this much material to do this. Let's put a bid. So
that's the plan.
With that in the background of our thought process here, I just want to make sure that our staff and our people are dotting their i's and crossing their t's on what needs to happen so that we don't.
Correct.
I mean, you went through a plan of trying to make sure that our city government is efficient.
Yes, sir.
I want to see us make every dollar used for something good.
Correct.
So.
I know that water trust board funds are very particular. You have to spend them in a certain amount of time. You have to spend them a certain way, and you have to, and they track that progress. So what we're spending is not, it's all monitored, it's all audited. Otherwise we can't request funds if we don't use them the correct way and in the correct. If we don't use them the correct way, we won't be allowed to apply for them in the future.
Prepaying.
What are you saying, really, Chris? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask one question? Chris, are you saying then we can just, we gonna only, we've been approved with this amount of money, but we'll only use what the project requires?
Correct.
That's all we say. So there's nothing, I don't understand the extent of the conversation, other than the fact that we just approving what has already been approved.
Well, I think the big question for me, the big question is, it's not gonna take 3.5 million to do the design.
You're not gonna spend 300 million for that.
But we don't have in the language that we can roll it into the construction. That's my concern.
so. Do we want to table this until our next meeting? You know, I would say that if Ashley comes back and says that we've got a deadline of December 31st, normally we would be able to say, well, we can have a special meeting, give 3 days notice, but we have. We have these 2 holidays coming up, that might be a problem. For a special meeting together.
How come we can't just worry about the construction later?
Because
They
it's
say
not,
that if you.
it's not spelled out in here that we can't.
Yeah, but how come?
That's my
Yeah, we
concern.
And what's not making sense to me is that we had 7.5 million allocated. Or originally, that was supposed to come to us. If we can roll those funds back in excess over to the actual project, why did we lose $4 million?
Because we weren't dig ready.
And we didn't lose it, we just.
We didn't
have
lose
in
it. They
this
just-
fund.
they're
It's-
making
it's
us
still allocated
work
for
for
us.
I guess the whole thing is if we were asking tonight for 1 million to do this planning and designing. And then go get the rest, the other 6.5 later, I'd be fine with the construction. But we're asking for almost half of it. to design, and it's not gonna take.
I don't know that we've actually asked for this, if truth be known. I think this is what the Water Trust Board says, this is what we want to give you now to get ready to spend the rest of that 7.5 million.
I think you're fine.
But
If we can get that clarification and have it in writing. If we can wait until our next meeting in January, I'd a whole lot rather do it that way. So I'm gonna make the motion to table.
Did she find it? Did she find it?
To the
The 23rd,
Pardon?
the 23rd of this month. We have to get the signed documents back to the lawyers.
23rd of December.
Yes,
Why do we have no time to look at and do any homework before we just have to sign off on stuff?
Because we
It's
don't
what,
have much
it's what we,
special
when we
meetings.
got it from the Water Trust Board, we sent it to the lawyers.
Out of these times,
And
they
it-
have
we
to have
got it back.
special meetings.
I don't know the exact updates. But I can find out.
I don't have a second. We have a motion to table, but I don't think it's a complete motion.
I'll second it.
Well, it's not a complete motion because there's. Well,
Why
Okay.
can't he motion to table it? I can second it.
okay, but usually a motion to table says we have to have a till when?
What happens if we don't have this turned in by the 23rd?
We will be removed from the funding.
We won't get the money.
As Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong. Because this is it goes in phases on how you do it. And then this is the, I forget what phase, or how they call this phase, but if I'm not mistaken, if we don't complete this portion, we will drop out. Am I right, Ashley?
that is correct.
Mr. Miller, can I ask, how many water trust board applications have we done? Do we know?
Yeah, we know. I couldn't tell you right offhand.
But we've done them before?
We're the one previous to this, and I think last year.
Well, the tank renovations out on the hill, the water trust board.
Do you think that this is a question that can be answered within the next 3 days and we have a special meeting, even if it's over the weekend?
I can ask the question of the lawyers.
23rd is Monday. We need to give 3 days notice.
And we gotta get three notice. So we would have to have an answer tomorrow.
I would take a risk, Mr. Mayor. I think we need a motion to approve.
Oh, hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Actually, there is a letter here from the attorney. You don't have it, but I see it here in this.
So, I will, so federal grants. And grants
Hold on.
set, so the qualified entity, which is financial assistance approved by the state legislature for financing. For financing a qualifying water project may apply to the board to redirect financial assistance to a different water project made necessary by unanticipated events. So if we have extra money, we can redirect our funds to the construction portion. That is state statute, section 72-4A-9B.
Can you say that a little slower? Sorry.
Sorry,
Section, which one?
section 72-4A-9, in parentheses is B, New Mexico State. Correct. The decision to redirect the financial assistance to a different qualifying water project will be at the sole discretion of the board. It's subject to approval of the state legislature. So
it would be up to the water trust board.
it'd
It
be up
wouldn't
to
be
the
up
water
to the
trust
statute.
board. What's that?
It wouldn't be up to the statute. The statute gives the board
The
the
statute
ability
gives
to
the
say
board
no.
the authority to do that, yes.
Yes, okay, so they could just say, no, you can't do that. Is what
Correct.
that reads.
But they've also given us, assurance that we're getting construction funds. I would think that they would, and again, I can't say for sure and 100%. I would think that they would allow us to redirect that money to construction.
Eric, can you tell us about that?
It just basically says it's from the attorneys assigned to us. And it says they've enclosed the documents for the signatures of the mayor and city clerk, authorizing resolution, loan subsidy agreement, general and no litigation certificate, delivery deposit, and cross receipt certificate. We are also included an executed copy of the ROY certificate in our opinion of council, which I do not see, but all original documents, signatures will need to be signed, sealed, if indicated, and returned. We anticipate the city council will adopt the authorizing resolution on December 17th. For the resolution following the meeting, please complete the attendance. They're just telling you what to do within the document.
What the heck? I'm gonna go on the record to change my opinion. I can't turn the money away. I just don't wanna see us turn the money away. I understand we're taking a risk that we can or cannot roll it over. But I can't see us not getting the money. But I know we still have a table on the.
Well, I hadn't accepted that motion because I would like to have what we're tabling it to. So I haven't accepted that motion. So there is not a motion. today.
So I don't think that we should turn this away either. Like Preston said, we have to have this stuff before us before we have to do this meeting, and then, it's the 23rd and we don't even have enough days to call a special meeting if needed. I don't know if this paperwork was done, this week, or if it was done a month ago.
So I can get you the email.
The letter from the attorney was dated
Trust
December
board.
12th.
My name is when I sent it.
So it was only 5 days ago that we were sent the information. So that kind of puts a constraint on us too. I mean, even if we see December 12th, then we're gonna have to have this. If we know that there's gonna be some questions about it, then, we're able to kind of hold a special meeting prior to this meeting. Maybe would be a recommendation. I know that's kind of hard because we don't see the actual agenda items until they're presented to us. But we just have to find a better efficient way of getting this done. So with that, I'll just make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Okay, now I have a proper motion. The motion is to approve resolution number 2024-49, well food improvement WPF 6303 loan grant agreement. Further discussion. Ms. Swope, will you call the roll?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
No.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Ms. Parker is absent, so Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
No.
and Mr. Merrick.
No.
Any motion passes on a 4-3 vote. Next item is Infrastructure Department, Ms. McVeigh. First item is request the approval of acceptance of donation of $1,801.16 for from Mike Davidson for drought-resistant trees to be planted in the Portales Cemetery.
Good evening, council and mayor. So in our Clean and Beautiful grant that we did, we wrote in that we would also like to do drought-resistant trees in the cemetery, and Mike Davidson said that he had a donation of $1,801.16 that he would like to donate towards that. And so I'm here before you asking if you would like to accept that for trees in the cemetery, drought resistant.
Questions?
What type of trees?
Drought resistant.
No.
My answer is well.
No, they
So-
were, is it oak tree, palm tree? What type of a tree?
So we've done a little bit of research and actually there's a lot of trees that are pretty drought resistant. We want to do some of them that are also what is it called? Basically where they are okay in the sun. It's like shade resistant, I think is what it's called. There are aspen, but we didn't really want to put those in the cemetery because they like to sprout everywhere. I believe evergreen is one of them. Mike, do you remember some of them? If y'all don't mind, if Mike names off a couple.
One was called Arizona. I came from the direction case at the cemetery. Personally, I would not. No.
There's a desert willow. And we also wanted to pick a couple that were kind of pretty. There's one that has some white flowers. I don't exactly remember the name of that one either. I should have written them down, so I do apologize.
The reason I asked the question, trees are unique.
Yes.
And they're unique to their long and locality. And so when you say drought resistant trees, if you deal with the mountain area like we're in, you're talking about evergreens and so forth. Now, I don't want the cemetery to look like a
Cemetery?
scary place. Yeah, scary place.
Okay.
So it's drought resistant trees have to be really, the genus and the species really have to be looked at. Willow trees in a cemetery, even though they're desert willow, is a feeling that you don't want. So I'm just worrying about the type of trees that you're looking for.
Okay, so not a desert willow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Desert willow, no.
They're kind of stickly.
I would also just state that any tree that has a flower is probably gonna create some type of
Yeah.
sap that could get on the headstones that people purchase. That may be something to take into consideration.
Okay, we can do that. I have looked through MNRD, and so that is a federal agency or entity, and they have a program, a seedling program. And we have purchased a few drought resistant seedlings through them. And we're going to see if some of them survive and see if we can plant some of those. And in the descriptions, they give you what kind of insects that the trees may attract. They give you what kind of atmosphere they need to grow and that type of thing. So I did try to pay very close attention to a lot of those things.
Also, you have a good source around it, the ag department in New Mexico State.
Yes, sir.
They, even Texas Tech. Have good source of ideas. So I hope y'all look into those.
I can do that for sure.
I was gonna say I would like to, at least visit with the soil and water conservation group that I'm part of, about some of that with the help from New Mexico State. But also I want us to keep in mind that we don't want trees that have taken a great deal of maintenance and cleanup. I have a neighbor with a willow tree and I spend a lot of my time cleaning up her willow tree. And, other neighbors have mulberries and I pick up mulberry leaves for 3 weeks every fall.
Yeah, but they fall all at once. That's a good thing.
So I would like us to keep those factors in consideration.
Okay, so we will look for a lower maintenance type of tree.
Well, let's accept the donation first.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Merrick, a second by Mr. Self to accept the donation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I think you got your instructions on trees.
Very nice. Thank
Just
you.
like to say thank you to
Yes.
Mike
Thank you,
for.
Mike. Mike. Sure. Good, thank you.
Thank you for spearheading.
Next item is a request approval of resolution number 2024-50, a resolution of sponsorship for transportation alternative and recreational trails program. RTF, application and maintenance.
So this is a resolution to put in an application for RTP, and that is Recreation Trails Program, so that we can develop a pedestrian multimodal pathway through the town. And what the idea is, where the softball complex is, if we can tie that in and bring that through, like over by West Campus housing, and Altaterra, we have a lot of walkers that go over there. And they, walk to campus and they like to be physical. They go to a lot of the arenas, they do a lot of the things. Well, if they had a safe route to go towards the softball complex, that would be really good too. So if we can develop a pathway there for multimodal for pedestrians, then that would tie in the town with recreation. And then you can kind of make a loop basically all the way around to the Sonic. And then that would tie into the town completely. And that's the idea with the RTP that we're looking at right now. And it seems very grand and very large. But this application would actually encompass the plan, the design, the architect stamp, and the construction and surveys and certificates and everything that would entail. Right of ways, that type of thing, because this kind of a project would require some right of ways and easements.
Just make sure if we get the grant that all that's in the grant.
Yes, sir. And there.
There'll be funds in there to maintain it, because we can't even maintain the stuff.
So what we are asking for is $4,127,000. There is a share cost in that. We are going to, if approved, which is the next resolution, but I have to have the resolution in order to apply for it, apply for the state match fund. The state match fund that is through the Department of Finance. And I don't think I can jump 2 in 1, so I'll just stick with this one. But the state match fund would be 600,000.
Okay, but to
Or
answer
I'm
his
sorry, not
question,
state, yes. And so the share cost for the city would be 600,000.
but to answer his question about the maintenance of this, if we get it and get it built.
This should cover it, yes. And if it's not enough too, then I will find another grant and I will write some more.
Questions?
So this 4 million is plus is for construction
It's,
and maintenance and
it's, for-
design.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think about. What does it cover? I guess that's my portion.
okay, so it's going to cover the planning, the design, the construction management, the deconstruction. It will also cover easements, right of ways, certificates, those types of things that come along with needing to build. So it will be materials that we use. We're hoping to use materials that are good on the joints, that are hopefully absorbent in a way, but good materials that are going to be good for the environment. They're going to have green infrastructure built into them. So that way, that's what I mean by absorbent. The green infrastructure will help with flooding issues in certain areas. It'll help to reduce that.
So staffing is gonna be on the city.
Staffing,
Yeah, the personnel to maintain this.
so to maintain it is going to be very similar to maintaining the parks. Because it is going to be a pathway, it's going to be like a sidewalk, but then it's gonna be. Your green infrastructure is gonna be kind of. It's gonna be kind of like small little parks or like medians in areas around where you're walking the paths. So it's going to be in that way. If we need different machinery and whatnot in order to maintain it, then this grant should cover that.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I can see it now. We're gonna have the Facebook blasters saying they're fixing everything but the roads. They're making everything around the roads look beautiful. And the parks, but they're leaving the roads to fall apart. So just a comment there that I can
Well,
foresee happening.
Yeah, well, I think we need to govern by Facebook, so there you go.
I agree with you.
Any other comments, questions?
So if I'm getting this right. You're proposing to go along where University curves and goes back towards the current industrial park. Go across private property there to the walking trail that's over by the pond.
So I'm not saying to use the private property. Because that's private property. But the way there is going to be more of the planning process of it.
So there's paved road that gives them access that they can walk down to get over to the walking park. This would be something that would be along off the side of the road. I'm
Yes.
envisioning this to look at, have you been down to Hobbs?
Yeah.
I have, yes,
Okay.
yes.
As you're coming into Hobbs, they built a walkway
Mhm.
that's got plants and lighting and a walk path and
Yes, sir.
it's beautiful.
It is.
But
That's the
it's
hope.
probably a very, very expensive project and they've got to go out there and maintain that and mow that constantly. And I had some people tell me that they had people snake bit off of the trail because of the plants that they put in through there.
We will try to be careful about what we do plant over there. There's always going to be a negative and a positive about anything that you do.
Yeah.
Anything that you build. And I do understand. And we always want to be careful and vigilant in everything that we do. And we want to weigh both sides. But sometimes the good outweighs the bad. I hope.
I don't want to deter you from looking at grants. But it seems like we get grants for things like this, but not for taking care of, like Preston said, the streets that are deteriorating around us, so. uh, We've got parks that are in dire need of help. And I have a hard time asking for money to put more stuff in that we can't take care of.
Would the recreational trails program be able to rehab some of our existing parks? Would that, any of that funding work for that? Instead of
So-
adding new?
We actually do have a grant out right now that we are waiting on an answer for that is for that very purpose. So this, I didn't put this one in for a repeat. This one was a different one. So we're not guaranteed to get the ones that we asked for.
Right.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Mr. Lopez. It's a resolution. Swopes, we call a roll.
Yes. Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
No.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
No.
Mr. Rackler,
No.
Mr. Self,
No.
Mr. Merrick.
No.
Motion fails 5-2. So I guess that kind of resolves number 3.
It does, that
Since
kind of
number
wraps
3
it up.
is, and what I need to do then probably, since we have an item on here, I probably need a motion to table indefinitely item 3.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe, for looking for those grants.
All right, Mr. Moyer. Next item is request approval of the intent to adopt the amendment and addition to ordinance number 760, City of Portales Personnel Policy adopted July 5th, 2022. The additions, city attorney, and section 8 compensation and benefits.
Mayor, council, so we're gonna talk with section 8 first. If you look at your packets, you'll see overtime pay and compensatory time pay for non-exempt city employees. You'll see the part that's struck out and then underneath of it. So basically what we're trying to do is take every time that employee gets a step raise, they have to be paid out their comp time. So what we're trying to do is to save money for the city and allow employees to roll over that comp time. To be fair across the board, since this usually just affects firefighters and EMTs and not anybody in the general plan. We did it for a full pay period. So general plan employees are going to be 80 hours per pay period. Police officers can carry over 84 hours and firefighter and EMTs can carry over 106 hours. Any accumulated amount above that will be paid out, and if the employee chooses, they can be paid out when they do a step raise. So they don't have to roll it over, they can be paid out. But if they want to roll it over, they can.
Okay. And then
The next one is adding the city attorney to our personnel policy ordinance. This is just a general overview of duties and appointment and qualifications. This is not a hierarchy of how the city will approach using the attorney. as far as department heads, talking to them, city manager being his point of contact. That'll be.
That'll all be in a contract.
That'll be in the contract, or it'll also be an internal memo to the city employees.
Questions from Mr. Moyer? This is an intent. It'll be back to us in what, 30 days?
2 weeks.
2 weeks
Yes, sir.
for adoption.
I guess I've got a question on the, if I may, I apologize, I'm horrible at just speaking up, so next time
Go ahead.
stop me. On the appointment qualifications for the city attorney. And I know that you covered it, but it's essentially an independent area outside of you.
Correct.
Why is this an appointment of the mayor and not somebody that,
That's the way the statute reads.
Yeah.
okay,
That's by chapter 3 of the state statute.
okay.
Ratified by the council.
Yeah,
Right.
it's, and it
Right.
says that right there. With the approval.
Council
Yeah.
approval.
And I remember that from our discussion. I just want to make sure that we get that out there.
Okay. Anything else?
The firefighters have
Yes, sir.
kind of been at the brunt of this overtime thing. And it's caused some angst. Do you see the same happening for the rest of the employees?
As far as comp time, I don't. Firefighters are the ones that currently are the only ones that have comp time to roll over.
I guess probably the other, they don't accumulate at this degree that the firefighters.
Correct. The comp time that the general pay plan employees, general employees of the city accumulate at is far less and is used more often.
That is.
Yeah.
Could you kind of explain that, Hank, so maybe the chief can, why, I mean, I'm confused why we have a problem with rolling the vote.
Well, the previous city policy was adopted, made to where it was okay to vote on without a property. So we put in the policy for one thing they did. But do. Together, they have here. They're doing 8 hours a month. And 6 people. That is really. They put that in which is top.
I sort of, and I apologize, but I'm gonna follow this. So I work 50 extra hours. Okay, because we don't have enough hours. So I have the option of rolling that to next month and not being paid for it now. And 1 month's amount and
it's not every payment. So if an employee gets a certification or a step raise, according to the previous city policy, they'd be paid out. So that means if they have a vacation plan or a kid's birthday, they have enough time. They have. Yeah, this will allow for the world, just like they're allowed to go and take vacation time. They can just go. You do have to.
I have a question, if I may.
Okay, are you done?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is this gonna affect, like, say? I know, like. My employees, they are tenured, they have so many hours of PTO time. And then they have it on top, we've already have a shortage of staffing. Is that gonna affect the staffing and the business rolling through as far as, well, we're already taking this much time off, now we're having to add an extra.
From a regular city employee standpoint, no. And then, it's the same fire department.
It doesn't change our policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I do, I've got a question, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding the comp time. But you said that it's going to save the city money.
Correct.
How is that possible if then they can go take a step raise and we're then gonna pay them out at 1.5 of their new rate? I don't think it's gonna save us any money per se, because then they can still be paid out at a higher rate.
Most people, so you're either paid out at your lower rate when you get your step raise, or you can roll over that comp time. Most people are gonna take that comp time. And use that comp time. Chief explains it way better than I do.
And then, but let's say they don't take it, they're paid out at 1.5 times their salary at their new rate, correct? No, not if they got a step raise later. If they go get a step raise, it goes up with it. Okay, and then when they use that comp time though, they're still paid out at regular pay at that point if they go utilize the comp pay. Right, they're not getting paid the 1.5. Okay. Right. Okay.
Is there a cap on it? Am I?
That's what
That's
we're
what.
putting on.
Okay,
They have to be paid out.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
They can carry a full pay period. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
way
he
up.
does a way better job of explaining it than I do.
Because he had to deal with.
Yeah, he's in it every day.
He's the one that,
Yeah.
he's a driving force.
If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes. Further questions? Pleasure of the council.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elkins, second by Ms. Cordova. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. That concludes our action items. We are now down to city council and staff comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what happened to the, yeah, but did I have the draft? Oh, you took that off. Okay, sorry.
Sorry. I'm looking at my agenda again. I'm going, "Well, I checked off everything." But thank you, because I have missed stuff. So we are down to city council and staff comments. I'll begin with staff. I'll start on the back row. Chief, Chris, Kelly. Thank you. Joe? Swoops? Melissa? Mr. Moore?
I've been, collaboration. Dedication. Part of it. Probably about 8 to 9 million. So we have some pictures. So this is just one that we've done. So what's happening is we're going around dumpsters that we are replacing. You're cleaning 5 by 5 area around it. So that's what we'd like for. So we'll clean out that area. Well, they're doing a good job, so.
Saved you some time on the one near my house. I already did all that for you.
Mr. Moore.
You gonna put in comp time?
Do the new dumpsters have stands underneath them, keep the bottom flat on the ground? And I wish they'd build them like that, because that's what causes them all to rot out.
And we're gonna have to keep an eye on. The things that I might.
As advertised on TV.
Streetlights. The partner investigated, labor. We have followers that got put into the softball complex. So they were lighting. So that whole. Lights.
Are you gonna, when you do those lights, are you gonna do the dark sky lights? You know what I'm talking about?
I do, we'll try not to do.
Because there's a bill being proposed in this next legislature that's gonna mandate the dark sky lights for all of us.
Put that in like 5 years ago.
I think so, because we already have to follow it on the utility side.
Well, I'm just saying that I just read the bill last week, so
It's gonna get worse.
anyway, that's the only reason I asked that question.
So. We did that order for. So. On 18th of February, the hospital.
One quick question on the sign. I watched it, I was driving by and watching them move. Do one the other day. And that signpost was still really crooked. And we just put the new sign on it. Are we gonna try to straighten them up as we do them? Okay, I'd like to see them, back up straight where you can see them. This one was pretty far over and there's stuff that might have. Replace that. Thank you.
On that note, I was trying to shoot in order. What do you do? Move forward on technology. In that. I had. Go ahead. Limiting how much ABD kind of big would be.
Can I ask a question on that? So we ordinarily get these several days in advance to review. If the iPads are just at our stations, how would you recommend us review those before?
So everything's sent out. Or.
Okay.
We just don't, they're just gonna be Wi-Fi tablets, Wi-Fi iPads.
Mhm.
You don't wanna have to basically go through about one. Really solid.
Right.
Well, and then you can always print your own if you want off of your email.
Right. There's future.
Those brackets that we put the street signs up with, or of aluminum, cast aluminum. And they've been breaking in the past. Can we look at probably trying to get local welders to build us a bracket that would be welded out of metal and would be more durable?
So I have to double check with Steve. If it's- they were supposed to get this last week.
We've got some local businesses and probably get it cheaper than what it's gonna cost you to order it.
Right, if we're making our own sound, that's. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Mr. Rattler.
I don't have anything. I would like to thank everybody for their patience on my medical things that have been going on the last 5 months. And I'm hoping for a good report from today's procedure and maybe 25 to be a little better and a little more involved. So my apologies for missing some of the ribbon cuttings and those kinds of things, but these new needs have not allowed me to do so.
Mr. Merritt.
Question came to me. We had contracted Wilson and Company to do an assessment of all of our well field, all of our water, everything. So did they ever do a complete report back?
January 7th.
It's like 5 months behind schedule, but that's good that they finally put it in. And everything else I had was already answered, so.
Mr. Elkins.
Yeah, I've got maybe an idea or a question on the softball field. When I was going on my little adventure to the boneyard, driving behind the softball fields, it's almost comical. We have 2 handicap parking signs on the back side of the softball field. And so the only place they can park is in a field, and then they have to walk through a locked gate, and then a long unpaved walkway to get there. We may look at not possibly moving those to the front of the softball field. And also if we could even just asphalt the opening where the handicap folks could park, because
That's in the grant that we have for paved park.
okay, good. Because okay, it was just comical to see that all the way back there.
Yeah.
Well, and they might, but it's harder for them to walk that way than it is just walking through the normal parking lot. So
Because that normal parking lot has the concrete.
you're right. So, and then I really just when we're going over the ordinance, or the resolution 2024-49, and we're forced to vote on something that we have no answers to me is not a good way to conduct business as a city. We're giving answers with a whole lot of questions. And I would like to not do that going forward. I know that may be outside of our control, especially with this case. We may not have had much time, but to me, it does a very large disservice to our community to do stuff that way. So.
Mr. Lopez.
How about the update on the dogs or the dog pond, whatever you want to call it?
Our schedule. Pre-manufactured to restaurant, basically. Mine's been spending really big.
And I can't ask you anymore about the weeds. But they're still there.
That process is the last process. That the postcard, certified letters, and then you can set it and do it for ordinance, they're in the last thing step. The ones that I'm gonna put, I'm not sure what it is. We're going to, and you take care of it. It's a smaller tablet, so you don't have to do Any of our life ones, we can just go out and vote. Give them all that. Not the same thing.
I'll tell you, if we get a pretty big freeze and those weeds freeze there and dry, them apartments ain't gonna be there. If it starts fire.
But they're last, they're timed out next. We'll move forward and have it done. We charge by clock.
Thank you. So that.
Just want to brag on the police chief and Officer Daggett, anybody that was involved with the gentleman that tagged. I heard 30 buildings. I don't know how many buildings, but he got 3 of ours. So thank you for catching him. Appreciate your efforts. Chris, want to thank you for your efforts helping me with that dumpster issue. Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Oscar.
Portion came from the community about the new dumpster, how many we have and how many are going in so forth. And then they also want to know about the maintenance of the lids. Is there any kind of way we can protect the lids? Or they say when you pick them up, go back down, they get broken off then. So what are we planning to do with our operators?
To start off, it's 89 per day, probably. Now, basically, it's a part. As far as the lids, you have metal lids. They could have some people, the plastic lids are. So that. Great. I asked the question.
And there's one other, I know we can't police it, but there's an overuse of our dumpsters. They get filled real quick, like on every weekend. Correct. And I know we can't fully, we don't have the staff to see who's doing it. But are we working with the county or anybody to see if we can stop that?
I think that's what we people are probably.
Let's see.
I can tell you that I will. One of the things that I wanted to put. Fun inside. So go down. The problem a lot of times, we don't know about that. So, you know, so we're looking so that we can, not so we can, it's basically policing ourselves, but also.
That Tuesday, Wednesday deal, that's a good deal. A lot of people don't realize that program is free. That is.
And it's always free for anybody that has it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wrong.
I just have a couple of things on the dumpsters. There's one online between L and M that doesn't have a bracket on it. So I know that's the reason why it's not being dumped. But, if that one's already kind of spilling over into the street. So line and in between L and M. And then, just to kind of follow up on Preston's, comment, I would like to see like deadline dates, like when we have to have things in our packets, like, you know, even if it's just in the comment, this has to be done by certain date, and then just the paperwork to show that.
So one of the things that I got that I.
Pre-meeting that has a form. A pre-meeting that has a form. Just have to be announced.
We just announced it with the workshop. So.
That's a good idea. Yeah. But at least we could ask some questions and then you could come prepared, because sometimes whenever we're asking questions and it's just like we have to search for the answers, it's hard to make a decision. Yep, thank you for that. That's it.
Okay. Only thing I want to announce is we're gonna have that finance workshop on January 15th. I visited with Liliana the other day. She's ready to do that. That's the date she suggested. The time is still to be determined. So as soon as we have a time for that, we will get that out to you. But she will be prepared, and that's the date she wants to do. And other than that, I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We won't see you again until we'll see you next year.
And a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, and a Happy New Year.
Mike, can you bring me up to date on, our lawyer? Is he doing okay?
We're gonna talk about that. Oh, Mr. Dorr is back in town. I have not seen or talked to him. So whatever I say is nothing more than hearsay, but he is recovering
That's good.
and he's back in town. So. Okay. With that, I'd like to have a motion for action to convene in a closed session to discuss matters as provided for under New Mexico state statutes relating to limited personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Cordova, I think a second by Mr. Merrick, and Ms. Slips, I need you to call the roll.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
is absent, Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Rattler,
Yes.
Mr. South,
Yes.
and Mr. Merrick.
Yes. Okay. I need action to come out of the closed session.
So
Second.
All right. Mr. Robinson made the motion, Mr. Elkins seconded it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I would like to announce that only those items that were announced for going into executive session were discussed. No action was taken and no action was needed. With that, we're adjourned.